Hello and welcome. My name is Jeremiah, the Bullfrog Hale, and this is Tips and Tricks with ProPricer. We'll cover useful tips and tricks in ProPricer that help you leverage your time better and get things priced. The newer and recently enhanced workflow feature is what today's Tips and Tricks episode is about. What is workflow and what are the basics of using it? That's what this is about. Let's get started. If you have a larger team that uses ProPricer to create the final proposal, then you need to be using workflow in your proposals. By larger, I mean 10 or more people that have tasks to complete the finished proposal on time and on budget. Workflow is like an assembly line in ProPricer, a step-by-step process with handoffs, locks when complete, and email notifications when it's the next guy's turn to complete their piece of the puzzle. I'll be working in ProPricer 9.3.107, which is the latest version of ProPricer at the recording of this episode. Workflow needs to be set up and enabled in the proposal properties, formerly called the general proposal data. In the properties, there is a whole workflow folder called, workflow. I wonder how many times I'm going to say workflow. And workflow defaults can be set up for all proposals in the ProPricer system settings. But for now, in the properties is where the main setup needs to happen. Let's do a basic setup of workflow now. It starts with the general page in the workflow folder. Not much here, just 2 checkboxes. You know, we like to keep things simple. On this page, we'll enable workflow and notifications. I'll click the Apply button down below to update the proposal with these changes, but still keep the Properties window open so I can go on to the Roles page next. Hitting the Apply button is not a mandatory step, but I find it's a best practice when moving between pages in the properties of the proposal. If you happen to smash the Escape button, it closes the properties without saving, so you'll have to start over. Don't ask me how I know that. Okay, moving on to the Roles page. Here we are going to make groups of people that kind of do the same things when working on the proposal. These groups are mainly for security. This is an open-ended setup and you can make as many roles as you want. In this example, the roles I'm going to use are estimators, project managers, pricing analysts, consultants, and contract administrators. You're stuck with the workflow admin role being in here. It's hard-coded, and that role should likely be assigned to you. People are associated with roles for easy assignment in the next step, called, steps, because we couldn't think of a better name. But before we head off to the steps page, we need to set permissions for each role and assign users to the role. Easy peasy, let's do it. See how the workflow admin has all the checkboxes and can do everything? But say an estimator should only have advanced and action done, because that's all they'll need to get their job finished. So I'll set all the permissions now. For each role down below, we get to use a drop-down to pick from the list of ProPricer users. To start, you should pick yourself to be the workflow admin, and set the users for each of the other roles. Next, we can apply the changes and move to steps. All right, on the steps page, my advice here is to keep it simple. 4 or 5 steps max. I'll do open, BOE estimation, project manager sign-off, and pricing evaluation for my steps. The system will provide a final step called completed, so I won't need to create something like that. For the step settings, I want the next group to be notified, so I'll select notify and set the roles to be emailed in the next step. And the last step here, called pricing evaluation, should get an auto lock to prevent estimates from being updated after everything's been signed off. A signature is a confirmation that the user completed the step by entering their password. Basically kind of like putting your hand up in the air saying you did your job right. I won't require this for my setup, but I would advise you to try it on your workflow setup. Okay, I'll assign users to each of these steps in cascading order. So the first step, everybody should be able to do it. The second step, then not everybody should be able to do it, and then so on, dwindling off till you get to the end. Sort of an upside-down pyramid. I think there's a name for that. Alrighty then, apply these changes just to keep the apply habit thing going, and click OK to close the proposal properties now. The first thing I'm going to do is open the proposal. Wait, no, I'm not. The first thing I'm going to do is copy the proposal, because if I open and start playing with this proposal, my workflow settings are all going to be locked in and I won't be able to change them anymore. Okay, right click and select copy and new version of the proposal. I'm just going to change the version to test FW for workflow. I'm going to leave the open after copy checked and click OK. All right, I see a few workflow columns added to the proposal now. I should point out that the latest enhancements to workflow added the roles columns we see here, but if you don't have those, it's not a deal breaker. It's simple to use workflow as a user. You enter your estimates and then you advance the task to the next step. Advancing a task is as simple as right-clicking and selecting task status and then selecting advance. You'll be prompted to review the tasks being advanced to provide any comments about the work being completed. These comments are saved by ProPricer in the workflow log. Watch your spelling and make appropriate comments, please. Management and auditors can request these logs to review. Then click OK to advance the task. That right there is all the training you'll need to provide to your team to get them using workflow. Simple, right? All right, this has been a basic setup of workflow in ProPricer. We've learned that workflow is a good feature for larger teams, which is 10 or more, but smaller teams could still benefit from the workflow task tracking, comments, and logs. Workflow is set up and maintained in the proposal properties, and it must be enabled for your team to get started using workflow in the proposal. Additionally, default workflow settings can be set up in the proposal default section of ProPricer. A few terminology things: we learned that jobs done in ProPricer are called steps, and groups of people assigned to those steps are called roles. The last key piece of information is that once workflow is set up in the proposal, it's really easy for a member of your team to use it with very little extra time added to their work. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please share it with a colleague who uses ProPricer. If you have any questions about ProPricer, or maybe some tips and tricks of your own, please email us directly. Who knows, your tip might just end up being our next video. Again, my name is Jeremiah, and as always, thanks for watching.